Let me start with the lady. Hey, pretty. How are you doing today?
I'm good. It's cold, but I'm fine.
Ga re tlhole re re go tsididi mo Bloemfontein always.
Wa itse ke ngwana wa mone mare.
Mare ga go
Ha e le
tlwaelegile.
ke tla mo gae, eish,
Ke mathata.
ke mathata.
Basi, welcome.
Thank you so much.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm happy to be here. I liked what you said about gore re rata go intsha mo, you know, like some topics if you don't understand them or if it's go tlhagela.
Yes.
Sometimes you're like, hey, nna ke ka ba ke tlo reng.
Eh.
And when I saw the topic, I was like, not that nothing has happened to me, but I'm just saying, because it's easy to have conversations, say,
Yes.
but it's like, okay, I'm happy to be here, and I'm also happy to learn from other people about the topic in general. Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
Lebo,
Hi.
good morning.
One.
Ke siame, wena o siame? O bona wena wa re ke hantle nna ke re ke siame.
Yes, I had to bring that in. Well, thanks for having us here. It's always an honor to be part of these conversations that attempts to move barriers of society and get everyone together to discuss quite sensitive and difficult conversations. I share your anxieties, by the way, when I saw what was going
The
to
topic.
be discussed here. I'm like, am I the right person or should I refer? but yeah, we have to take the responsibility and see how we all collectively learn and engage as we go forward. Thanks.
Happy.
Yes.
Teddy,
Hi.
we're not dancing today.
Thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Are you good?
Because I'm too cold.
Are,
My body is frozen where I'm sitting right now.
are you well?
I am very well. Thank you so much for having
You're
me.
good.
I am. And happy Pride Month.
And happy Pride Month.
Yes. On top of celebrating Youth Month, we are celebrating Pride Month.
Yes.
And that is what also I feel brings me here.
Yes.
On the topic of gender-based violence.
Uh-huh.
It's that we look at it in a gender-based issue.
Uh-huh.
And it's not really a gender-based issue, because when we look at gender-based issue, we look at male and female.
Right.
And from a LGBTQIA plus organization that I work for, Free State Rainbow Seeds, we have adopted using IPV and GBV.
Right.
With IPV, we mean intimate partner violence.
Right.
We don't look at it as male and female anymore. It could happen between two men that are married to each other,
Right.
or two females that are married to each other. So we look at it from an intimate partner violence point of view, instead of a gender-based issue.
I think perhaps let's start this discussion from there, because one of the greatest things that we've spoken about in this country is that many partners, and I'm going to use the word partners because I do not want to equally use the word women, because we've agreed as a panel that we are going to try and demystify the gender from just it being applicable to women. Ka gore re gola re re gender-based violence be re re mme o biditswe ke monna wa ntlhaloganya. Mara re be re sa re wa itse rre wa kwa lona ile go tshwarisa mme wa teng gate mme wa teng o na batla go mo hisa ka metsi a belang. Wa ntlhaloganya ne?
Yes.
So I think it's a very important thing that e re ha re bua re tlhaloganye gore gender o ga isa tlhole re bua ka bomme batho ba basadi bana ba banyana, but it applies to everybody.
Everybody,
Right?
yes.
But what I wanted, and Pasi, you can come in there, and like you said, some of these experiences may not be tsame, but they are tsaka ka gore a friend of mine, my sister, my mother, my friend, one tlhaloganya. A lot of partners have been killed by their partners. And I think it's a critical thing that we need to talk about, because ha re bua ka yone, when I have a relationship le Lebo, it's an intimate and which is applicable to what
Yes.
Teddy was saying. It's an intimate relationship. There's trust, there's loyalty, it's a comfortable space. Let's talk a little bit about that, you know.
Is my mic clear? Can you hear me?
There we go.
Okay. I like what you said about intimate partners, and I think more than anything, when two people come together, whether married or in a relationship or fat and setting, you stay with someone that you trust.
Yes.
And when I was growing up, I always tried to make things about what I've seen or what has happened around me. We used to see it a lot. Ke basadi ba ne le hore ba nyetswe ke maponisa. I don't know if you remember correctly. I remember when I was growing up, the first time I heard of a partner killing another partner was this lady that I knew. Ko hae ke kere ke apostola. Jwale ke hotse ke sheba ke bona ntho tse ngata
Yes.
within the church. And how le ngwana ke ne ke letsa scoop, so unfortunately I had to be there all the time. Wa khathaze moya wa ke na o. So like you know you hear how utlwe mme batho ba hola ba bua ngwana o mametse utlwe hothi no monna mama o shapile mosadi wa mama iqala mo wa ke it always
Yes.
starts somewhere hore
Yes.
as people, since we're not trying to make this about just women, we tend to avoid the red flags.
Yes.
Hore motho ena ka go letsohonyana motho ena ka ha bua le nna ha bua le nna hantle. So the first time I heard about a partner killing their partner was this lady who was married to her husband Nelile Bonisa. Whatever that they were fighting about, I don't know, but wila muthunya
Aha.
amulaya.
Right.
Ha qeta a ithunya
A
a ipolaya.
Aha.
So at that time, we didn't understand, I didn't even know there's a thing called gender, GBV, hore. But obviously, wrong is wrong. And you know, hore. Harata mo lefatshe mona na ho tla bolayana. And I learned something that I was trying to understand. Ha ke rata ntho e mme Bishop a buileng about therapy. Therapy is so expensive. Ko ha o ka ya toropong na o go lo bona therapist. Per session ke bokae? And a lot of people mo makeisheneng ke tla lekeisheneng cannot afford ho
Therapy.
ba ka ya ba ya therapy. And I can only imagine bana ba that couple, where are they now?
Yes.
Ha batswadi ba bone ba utlwa hothi mme o bolaile ntate ha qeta a ba ipolaya. And now making it personal, I grew up without my dad, but the last memories I had about him, I remember about him, was also that. He used to be very abusive. And I liked what May Bishop said, that you will only realize later how so hodile hore. I behaved this way because of what I saw. Le nna ke ntwa dume. There is no way I would allow a man who based on what I saw and what
Hi.
it did to my mother and what it. So get sometimes how for trying to how things stop and then when I was also
Yeah.
so gender-based violence, for me, it's personal because I went through it, I saw it happening to my mother.
Right.
But it has also affected me, but I only realized as I was a woman,
An adult.
an adult. And it can either go left or right. Now I'm raising a girl, and I've realized that I went to a public school, to Seleto High School. There were no therapists, there were no social workers. I don't remember sitting down with a social worker telling them about my problems. But now I see it. Like public school, private school.
Yes.
You see that?
Yes.
Oh no, now we must talk about our feelings.
Yes.
I never spoke about my feelings with. So for me, it's foreign to now try to understand. Oh, this is what they do.
Yes.
Oh, now you must be in touch. Oh, I'm sad. I don't want to play. I'm sad. I'm sad. So now you're trying to, we are a very confused generation. Let me put it like that.
Absolutely.
I'm confused because I'm going to raise
Ho
her
shapua.
because how I was raised.
Yes.
My mom did a good job by but now I must be understanding. Oh, okay, so you sad. Sit down. Why are you sad? No, Harold hit me and I didn't like it. So now it's not about, hey man, it's about, what did Harold do? So mme wa ka le nna o ne a rata ho lata batho sekolong. Ha ne ke shapilwe ke ye, a ne a lata batho ko sekolong hore o shapilwe. But now it's like, okay, things are different. And now I'm at that gap where we are a bit confused because of the things that we saw when we grew up and trying to make sure that it doesn't happen to this generation that we are raising. Because my 2000 are very different
Yes.
from us and what we know.
Correct. With what you just said, and Lebo, I want you to come in here. Basi mentioned a very important fact, alcohol. There is, Nelly and Twitter was on social media platforms. There is a phrase, ke joke, barata ho ngola ko Twitter. Bari biri ke 20 rand. Therapy ke session ke 1.5. Bari mplele kilo reka mpele. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And and I'm saying this so that we contextualize what you're saying,
Yes.
because hare bala in rands and cents,
Yeah.
right?
Economically, it makes sense. It might make sense.
It sounds like it makes
Reality,
sense.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I
yes.
want us to talk about the effects of alcohol in relation to GBV, because ke nnete, ra compare re session ke
Yeah.
1,500 rand, ba re o lo dula couching for 500 rand ta light yaka, you know. O bua le motho o mongwe o sa mo itseng ka mathata a gago, o hitile black da ko ga mamang o ka bo khavile black fast wa dula le majita da mo
Yeah.
creating let's talk about that.
Well, I think we must appreciate that firstly, as Batho ba Batsho, has there ever been an introduction of coping mechanisms that are healthy to a soul that is burdened?
Aha.
So at that angle, maybe we might get answers or discover where the loopholes are. Bomme ba rona ba tsama merapelo ya bomme, for an example.
Ka mosho ka labone.
Ka Friday they go to the society ba lo kgabela ditapole and all of that. On Saturday they have their uniforms. They are having so many engagements as a society or a community that is able to support each other.
Right.
Ne? But as guys, besides soccer, I don't know if there's any other thing that brings us together to have a conversation, to share perspective at a social level, but also at a professional level or a much more sophisticated level.
Right.
There has never been a therapy or a therapist introduced to us. That is why in Totsabo's therapy, you even see them being memes. Or, oh, no,
Yes.
It's a fokotseile depression e jwale, tsamaya o lo hlatswa dijana. Because it has never been about healthy coping mechanisms
Right.
for us as a society. We have been oppressed people, we've been through a lot.
Yes.
I have never heard, even le bo ntate ba rona moo ba sebetsang teng, moo hothweng di-psychologist di teng, you will never hear your father saying, a ke re tsamayeng re lo bona psychologist, kapa let's go for a support. The only closest mechanism of support to us has always been the religious sector. But maybe Shopo ba buile mona hore ha lefu le hlahile, they come to bring counseling, to bring comfort, and that has been it. But we are an evolving society. Not
Yes.
many people believe in the same God today. Ngwana o tla o botsa hore na why modimo ile ntate e se mme, for an example.
Correct.
And instead of engaging, you say no. O jwale o botsa modimo jwale, o lwantsha modimo.
O tshwana
And
le
ha o
mapaseka
lwantsha modimo, o
a
lwantsha
lwanang le ngwana, wa bona?
So I don't think it's a question of being cheap, kapa therapy is expensive. It is foreign to us, a concept of trying to find healthy mechanisms for a soul that is ailing. Therapy can be one of them. Therapy is conversational, but ba buang haholo ke bo mme. We know that
Yes.
scientifically. Bo ntate ha se ngata ba buang. So ha o re ntate ha re ya sessioning, o lo nhlola re fihla ka hare.
Because how bui.
So
Exactly.
there has to be maybe other alternatives that are provided for different people.
Teddy, you
Can I
wanted to
just
come in?
add on to that?
Yes.
When you asked, I thought Honali Biria 20 rand, I don't know how much a beer costs. And, but don't ever say anything bad about Black Label. Biri is cheaper and
Yes.
therapy is more expensive.
Yes.
Coping is cheaper than dealing with. Personally, coping is far cheaper
Cheaper
and
than-
easier
Yes.
than dealing with the matter at hand.
That is very true. That's deep. That's very profound.
Yes. I cope a lot. Ke tseba ka nna.
Yes.
I cope a lot. That's why you'll never find somebody saying, my dealing mechanism is, but everybody has a coping mechanism.
Right.
From working all the time.
Yes.
From going to church all,
All
the,
the
time.
time.
Let's not make it as if church is therapy. You're coping by going to church all the time. Udulale society, udulale bafethu. We make it as if we're dealing. This is my way of dealing with it. You're not dealing with it. You're finding a way of coping
With it.
with your burden. There are people that have settled to be in abusive relationships as a coping mechanism. You are coping by staying in that.
Yes.
You're coping with the burden of growing up in a broken home so that you are not a laughing stock.
That
To
is
the
very
rest of the society.
Yes.
O kampane wa copa ka mpama ya ntate Mhlaeni, hore mme wa ka next door a ska o tsheha.
Eo seng
You would
o e
never
tseba.
yes, o so e tlwaetse.
Yes.
Ha o tlo ngo hahla hosane ke malomo. He's gonna hate me today, tomorrow I have a BMW.
Yes.
Mpama fela. E ka
Ya
se di ngwana
mpama.
betheng. You know?
Yes.
You find a way to deal because you become challenging. And then when you see it's going too deep, ha esale mpama se le face, what do you do instead of leaving? You retreat.
Yeah.
You retreat. Okay, Eric is papa, holo bekeng ena. Next week, it's a push. When you see, okay, I've pushed him too far, let me retreat. Until it goes to that level where you become tired of coping. And you're saying, today I'm going to push him to that point. And then what does he do? He doesn't know how to retreat from your push. He pushes back and shoots you. It's not that he hasn't thought about shooting you. Mara ontso oya o kgutle. Oya o kgutle.
Aba-
Because
aba-
you are not dealing.
Aba a re ko go wena, Teddy ko galemetse.
Eh.
Akere a re ko galemetse le last week ko galemetse.
So
Wa
last
ska
week, o kgalemetse, if we had to, for the sake of painting a picture,
Yes.
if we quantify it, let's say your attitude is a glass of water. Today is a glass of water, o mo tshela ka glass ya metsi. Wa o kgalemela. Ebile ha o kgalemela, he just looks at it. O bo re, oh, okay, glass ya metsi ha e sa le kganogo. Next week, it's a jug. A ba re ke o kgalemetse. O skipa 2 weeks. O sa yetse beke le beke.
Yes.
It goes back to the glass. You throw a glass again.
Again.
A ka se o kgalemele. O tlo emela jeke. O bo re ke a tseba mos le jeke ha e metse nix. Or a 5 liter full. The following week. He doesn't know how to act to a 5 liter. How does he react? He skips from the glass to boom.
Yes.
That's his defense mechanism. Bontate le bona ba na le defense mechanism. Ska ha o tsholo, bontate ha ba bue.
Yes.
O e
Lebo said
defenda ka
that.
eng?
Yeah.
Le strateng ba fethung ba bang. Ho tshellso. Ntse re qoqa eng ha nka o kenya mpama. Like Mazulu say, my favorite meme, why bangamshayi? Why balokhu bakhuluma? Why ungamshayi?
Ehem.
Ukhulumani?
Futhi basho bathi there's another meme that says you know uLebo ingane ka banban udokotela waye esikolweni wafunda futhi bathi uyi specialist manje bathi kodwa mina ngamshaya
Ngamshayi. No, noba ngabe president, ngamshayi.
ngamshaya. Yep. But I want us to, with what you've said, I want us to bring a different element to it, and I want to tie it with what Lebo said. We have children who come from dire situations. And rona ha re kgona go rekela ngwana borotho le dilo tsa skaftini le juicy le and then still take her to school. Mare be re tlhoka tšhelete re nagana gore ga rena madi.
Yes.
Right? Because re setse re itse gore ngwana ke o ja eng le wa ntlhaloganya. But go na le bana ba ba tswang ko tlhopegong ko go senang sepe teng. And I want to say this because my father, when I was just about matric, I tell people this thing that my father did all the time. Ke lemogile, ke godile, ke le ko sekolong. Ko gae ne re na le city golf. Ne re itse gore ha re gola mama ke ene o ne a dula ko France le monnage. O mong le o mo dula le uthiage ko pele, gents. Mama o ne a dula le uthiage ko pele. Ne re dula backseat. When I started doing matric, my father said, ne re ha re driver, mama a sala. Papa ba re tla o dule le nna. E be ke dula le papa ko pele. And then Papa would say, how tsena ko sekolong? And a boy offers you to sit on the front seat of their car. You must tell them your father has a car. And your father allows you to sit in the front seat of his car. Because no boy's car must make you feel good. You are not justified by a boy's front seat. Ragona le koloi. E o dulang ko pele mo go yone. So how tsena ko sekolong moshimanyana a re tlo o dule mo front seating ya koloi ya me. O mo re o re ragona le koloi. Ene wena o dula mo front seat ya koloi ya ga rrago. And then I got to varsity because harle ko varsity re bantsi and it's a different environment altogether. Ke tswa ko Batlhaping High School ko Taung. It's a very small community, right? Ga kena exposure ya lehatsi. I am now coming into Pretoria. It's a city on its own, an animal on its own. I am for the first time meeting, akere, oitse ha re dula ko location. Ha ko gabo mamang go na le motlakase, go na le metsi, go na le bathroom, go na le koloi, ba rich.
They're rich.
Akere, re contextualize yalo. Ha re tsena ko varsity, no, now you meet rich.
Yeah,
No? He bana, go na le bana ba batlang sekolong ka dikoloi. Tse e leng tsa bone. Rona re sena dio tseo, ebile o simolola go e bona. I then understood what my father meant when he said, how kopana le moshimanyana ko sekolong a re o dule mo front seat ya koloi ya ge. E ska go tsikinya ngwanaka ka gore ko ga mmago go na le koloi rra go tlogela o dula mo teng ga koloi le ko front seat ya koloi ya gage. And I want us to have this discussion because it's a difficult discussion for us to have. Because re bitsa bana ba rona di slay queen. Ne? But we are missing the point that ba simolola go bona dilo tse ka bashimanyana ha ba tsena ko sekolong. Their first level of exposure ke bashimanyana ba ba kopanang le bone a re etla po. But see, I want us to talk about that because it's a sensitive subject that e re sa batleng go bua ka yone as a community.
Yeah. It's so interesting, but also I want to go back to
Teddy.
what you spoke about, the abuse and all of that. You know, everything has a sekgowa. Ke mmepe, man.
Eh.
Ntho e nngwe le nngwe ke mmepe,
It
yeah,
correlates.
everything connects.
Eh.
I also, for lack of a better word, ke tlo blame bomme le bontate ba next door, ba back opposite, ba front opposite. A lot of women or men don't want to go back home because of me one next door, wa back opposite, lo wa front opposite. Hey, ke le return soldier. Ba mo divorceitse ona. Motho o dutse ko an abusive relationship because mama ga gagwe o ska ba bua ngwanaka. O wa riti ka mang? Ka mme wa next door. O sa le tsebeng lenyalo. A lot of people don't even want to downgrade their lifestyle. Ha re bua ka
Yes.
di-slay queen.
Correct.
COVID hit us.
All of us.
All of us. I always say I'm one person that ha hook about buima. Ko gae ke insert a peiti, ka senya ceiling, ka senya bathroom hore ha o ka nna mathata. I have a home to go back to. And then me one next door. Mo Rocklands, mo re gotseng re ntse re itse gore me one next door ntsare, me one next door ntsare. O sna le K53. I don't take a gun because ke downgradile my car because I can't afford it. Be ke dule ko jwe ke tlo go dulela banna ka baka la gore what? Ke tshaba go tla mo gae ka mme o sna K53. I always say to banyana ba banyane kere, there is no way in hell I will not go back home because of Mewa next door. So the reason why I'm saying it connects the dots, it's a thing. People are scared to go back home because of batlo go tshegiwa ko starting sa rona. So no rona ha re le bomme o le Mewa next door e bile go ke ntontso e etsa. Let's stop. Because there's a child out there who's scared to go back home because of o tshaba go tshegiwa.
Ke mme wa
Ke
Khanex.
maka next door.
Yes.
Now going back to Slay Queen, ke dula ko Joburg, ke phela amongst them.
Yes.
I see it. We see it on social media.
Yes.
And unfortunately, these are the very same girls that young girls look up to. Maobane ne re le ko botjhabela ke buile ka social media, ke buile ka Facebook, ke bua ka TikTok, ke bua ka Instagram ka re it is a lie. O shebile motho mo lantsa, "Oh, I woke up in Paris." Ha o tse go bosiu na etsang ha go bala. Ke monna. O mo tsukutile bosiu kaofela. You know, our parents, our moms, like sometimes would say, you know, our moms are very superstitious. Hey, mama ka roma ka eng. Bomme ba rona ha ne ba bua le rona ba re kgalemela. You only realize how hodile hore man. They
Mara-
might not have went to school.
Yes.
Mara the wisdom ya bophelo. Ha ke dutse le batho ba holo le bomme le bontate, you learn so much because you realize hore mama ka might not know this English. Mara damn o bohlale.
Haholo.
O tlo tla ska ba etsa so ha o hola ka simple thing re ba side hey apara ngwana ka tlo hey tse mo pepa o tla utlwa. Oh my god, she was right.
Yes.
Na ha re bua ka di slay queen. I can sa like mang o buile ka gore sometimes say how hotse o kwena ne how hotse o sna dintho you might now want they will excite you because of uditola so di qala o di bona baneng. I grew up with no dad. I grew up with no car, no front seat, no fork and knife and fork. Mara, hana ki fihla varsity, you spoke about Pretoria. Pretoria is the same as Joburg.
Yes.
Ha ki fihla mo, the first thing I saw is every student had a car. And I didn't have a car.
Yes.
And I think going to that school, going to Joburg, in rutile ke sale monyane to be ho amohela maemo.
Hey.
Mara ha se mang le mang o ka nnang le bohlale bo ba hore nna ka ke motho o rapelang I think ke modimo ba mfileng bohlale bo ba hore amohela maemo. There is no way nka tla hae mona ke re mama ke kopa koloi because of ke bone o mphilana le koloi ke a tseba shem ke re koloi self mos o ithola kae. So I've heard stories and I know this girl. This girl grew up with everything.
Yes.
Not even a city girl for ha ke re everything ke ba ka tse re di bonang kwa.
Eh.
She's a slay queen. O bona gore it can go left or right. Ngwanana ona o hotse ka everything papa ga go teng mama ha o presente mara girl ke slay queen. O batla o tsama le bo merit men o tsama ka dikolo tse di nice o batla bophelo bo bojwalo. So I think it all depends on also individuals gore wena
Yes.
ha ile hantle what do you want for yourself.
Yes.
And bophelo bo di slay queen ha se bophelo bo leng o tlo lasta forever because banna ba ke lemohile one thing a ke ra free wa re banyane re batle monna o tla offera a bottle of champagne Ke bo kae Mphile, champagne? 2.5, tse ding di tuiri, ne?
Eh.
How qala hore, "Eish, you know, I was thinking that I want to go back to Bloemfontein. I want to open a business. Wa nyamela." Mara ka o rekela champagne tse 10. Mara
In
ha o
one
qala o re,
night.
yeah, how qala o re, "Oh, you know, I have this idea. I want to go to Bloemfontein. I want to open a shop."
Yeah.
Yes.
I know for that shop.
Dependence.
Because they don't want to empower you. They don't want you to be independent. This whole thing of depending more money or more the other partner will make you now accept mpama.
Yeah.
One thing, I do not.
Beautiful.
Because of that, as long as you can post a Porsche logo Instagram or the Chomitaka di Bono Lena, I have arrived. So I think also as when we have friends around us, families, young girls, na ke bola mo gae mo Rockland mo. Ba o kae mamang? Ka pelo ke re he, o ke bona o tseba ditori hore ke batla go tshwana le ene in my heart I'm like, ska batla go tshwana le anyone.
Yes.
What is it that you want for yourself?
Yes.
You want to be a doctor? Do you want to be an actor? How to connect with the right people so that you can be whatever that you want to be? Ha re le basadi, melomo ya rona le rona e very dangerous.
Yes.
Akere.
Yes.
Melomo ya rona ke di weapon. Banna ba na re ba bolaya ka melomo. Wena, ha ona le tšhelete o le sena, ke abuse le yona.
Yes.
Wena,
Yes.
you hit below the belt. And then how tlapa le teng akere o bule ka defense mechanism wa bua
Yes.
wa tlapa. It's a whole thing e leng gore ha e end.
Yes.
So I think at this Slay Queen it boils down to individuals who wena o batlang for yourself because some they know a good life but
Yes.
they'd rather to sustain it they're willing to do anything for them to stay ho ba mo ditšheleteng le ho ba rich.
I hear you. Teddy, I want us to talk about with what Basi said. I want us to talk about language,
Yes.
words, ne? And ke batla go e botsa wena ka bomo. And I'm taking advantage of this opportunity because you are here.
Yes.
Earlier on, na le wena ne re tshega, ha ke re ko go wena. I had Lebo had dinner with friends, Maloba. So a friend says to the other one, "That's so Morphy-like."
Wow.
Right? And then I retaliate and I say, "You're such an old soul. Morphy ki eng?" Ki eng hore bana ba bang ba dira dilo tse di Morphy? Morphy ki eng? Wa bona? But I want us to talk about that because language builds our young people. It also breaks them down.
Absolutely.
Ne? That's number one. Number two, and I want us to have a broader discussion about this. Number two, our LGBTQIA plus community is something it's habahore. I'm gay, I'm lesbian, I am, because bana ba rona ba tshaba gore ke eng so seo ne equally me wa ka next door a re wetse nna ke tsore go iragalang ka ngwana ga mapaseka ke yo yanong wa ba simolotse a apara mesese and ha tsama ko strateng ra mo shwenya ga re buile ena. I want us to talk about the society that we live in that gives us names, that classifies us, but also, nako tse ding a ke re ga re tshabane. Ke re na re wena o eng? Wa ntlhaloganya?
The
Because ke itha ke re nka nna ka go raya sengwe le sengwe.
Yeah.
Let's talk about language.
One thing that we can't separate from GBV is abuse. We need to look at GBV as full-fledged abuse, not just violence.
Yes.
Your words, the way you refer to there's verbal abuse,
Eh.
verbal abuse,
There's
emotional
emotional
abuse,
abuse.
there's mental abuse,
There's financial
there's financial abuse.
Yes.
Those should all fall under IPV and GBV. You are violating my existence. You're not just beating me up.
Right.
The minute re re violence, ha re re ho shapua, we mean you are violating somebody's rights, somebody's existence,
Go na le mo go senyegang teng.
dignity, somebody's quality of life in general.
Yes.
Ha re bua ka GBV and IPV. So, like you said, why somebody would feel familiar enough to come and offend and abuse you
Yes.
is a step on your rights. O ka se fihle o kgwathe mapaseka o bo re, why le bahang a apere? First of all, we always say ungenapi.
Eh.
But it's funny enough, the ones that say ungenapi are the ones so deeply gengen. They are so ngenard that it becomes their problem. Have you seen how every person that is homophobic, it's their problem more than it's mine?
Yes.
I sit here so comfortably.
Yes.
O tsitsipane, o tletse building e ha o tse o iketseng, hoba hona le gay e dutseng mona. There's a gay person sitting here. You are so offended you can't even breathe sitting there.
Ore o yena ba mo isa kae?
That is being so invested in someone's life that it causes a problem to your life. You get, you're so invested in my life, I don't even know you exist over there. But my presence disturbs you. Thank you very much. I am that powerful. It's something that we are taught growing up because I've been having a lot since it's Pride Month, and I work for an organization called Free State Rainbow Seeds that stands for representation for the LGBTQIA community and the MSM community, which is men that sleep with other men. We discuss a lot of how do we separate culture and religion from human existence. We can't.
Yes.
It's a whole new topic, it's a whole new battle on its own. It influenced gender-based violence, it influenced abuse. From the beginning of time in religion, when it was said, Mosadi o tla hlompha monna hao ho fihlela psh." It never told a man who in return, hlompha. And then we took it from the Bible, and then we all became Sotho, Zulu, Xhosa, Afrikaans, Pedi, and the what.
Kopane.
And this one came up with, you don't look at the man in the eyes when you speak to the man. This one says you must look at the man in the eye when you speak to the man to show. And this one says don't even address the man. This one says bow. This one says kneel. This one says date another man when you're a man. Everybody has a certain culture. As part of the LGBTQI community, I have a certain culture with my partner.
Yes.
That's why I'm not going to refer to my husband as my husband unless he refers to me as his husband. Rebo husband take off, in case you are wondering. There is this patriarchy. There's this patriarchy that in the house there must be a me, there must be a ntate.
Yes.
Why? Because there are different levels of respect you give to each. They can never be equal in one household. No matter how much money you bring in as a woman, you'll never be equal to me because I'm referred to as a man.
As a husband.
Of that, I could be broke, but I'm the man. Kaklung
Come
kamwen.
on. Eh.
Because the patriarchy from the Bible and the church and the culture said so.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what we say in the house. I could be a very weak man in the house, but for the fact that, in between my legs, can't do me nothing. Because there's this defense. The Bible said so. Lako besa ka clap. It's because you didn't respect me. I wouldn't have reacted in that manner. You provoked me. You're a woman. There's no way I can provoke you as a man. Otherwise, nka o bolaya mos. It always falls short on the women. And then how do they retaliate? Like Basi said, like we spoke earlier. Come on. That's why they say a woman has a very sharp tongue. It can cause damage for days. This poor man doesn't know how to retaliate kamlom because he'll be forced to write such an alien. It's all a built up. Men don't have a release mechanism. Lebu, you did say. They don't have any form of release. Monna ha Allah, it's a problem.
Hard tutsi.
Men can't cry, it's a problem.
Yes.
He, it's a problem.
Yes.
What does a man do as an outlet? We need to look at that.
It's very important.
There are secondary victims. You mentioned that earlier.
Yes.
Secondary victims, Mama Lena Obuile, the bishop did say, secondary victims are your orphans of what happened with the death. Secondary victims are the children in that household that are witnessing what has happened. Secondary victims are us as a society who fall victim. Just because I see it happening, ha ke na matla a ho etsa nix. Ke a tseba hore ha nka etsa something, lebahang a ka nthunya hosane.
Yes.
Even though I witnessed it, I kept quiet while Ospinki there was being beaten and shot in the community. I am a victim of abuse by being a witness. It doesn't matter if I reported it or not,
Yeah.
because something could happen. Until we do everything out of fear.
Yes.
Lao le ngwana, you see your parents beating each other. You have a smartphone and a cell phone. You could call anybody at any moment. But the fear of the retaliation from that violence, hai sheba wena,
It's very
is it
problematic.
greater than rescuing the situation?
I hear you. Lebo?
Yes.
Thanks.
But thank you so much.
I want us to, speaking again about the language issue, let's bring it to the workplace now.
Well,
Ho na le ntho tse ngata tse re di buang mosebetsing, ne?
sure.
Tse re sa boneng hore they have implications. Bontate ha ba tlwaetse ho bua with a particular tone, hi, le mme. Ha fihla mosebetsing, o batla ho bua le wena ka tone ya hae. A lebetse hore re mosebetsing. That's one part. Then there is this part.
Someone can relate on all
O mo tlile.
Yeah, yes.
Then there's this part. Yeah, women who are in business.
Sure.
I was thinking emotionally, that are heavily affected. Ke bontate bana.
Sure.
Equally, se re na le very powerful women now.
Sure.
Ne? Ha se a mo sheba, a re ona na e ka ba snack sa ka. Ona.
Yes.
Ka ba snack sa ka ka mo etsa toothpickinyana ya ka. Ka itshwara fresh ka yena. Let's talk about that.
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I was quite, I don't know, but I wanted to contribute on some of the things that he said before I get to this one, which I think to some extent we did
The
connected.
connections between everything.
We cannot demonize manhood and masculinity to make it as if being a man equates to being an abuser. You can be a man, but I think the challenge then lies in an evolving society. How do we train young men to be men without being affirmed by using their physical strengths as an advantage to oppress the other? Taking it to the workplace, okay, I see.
I wanted to say, you've just said a very critical thing.
Yes.
But I want to also perhaps tie it a little bit and say that affirmation should also not be quantified by you raising a hand to a woman.
Yes, sure. And that's why I was quick to say without using the physical strengths to oppress the other, it should rather be to protect.
Yes.
As it has been taught in the olden days that young men are given strength to protect and to provide for the community. But taking it to the workplace, there has been a concerted effort by women from the 1950s, when the term corporate glass ceiling was first coined, to say in the workplace, women do the same job as men, but they are paid significantly lower for the same
Right.
job. That's number one. It goes back to how women are seen traditionally and historically, that they are caregivers. Tshwantse ba hodise bana, tshwantse ba be hae, basadi ba pheya, they belong in the kitchen and all of that. When it goes to the workplace, those cultural connotations and assumptions are then brought forward. And you find that someone who inherently has corrupted views about women is then given a position to be a senior or an executive, or this person is in HR, or this person is in supply chain, then you cannot divorce the views that I hold when I'm at home to the views that I have to hold when I'm in the workplace.
Yes.
There has been interventions. One of them is policies, acts such as Employment Equity Act, that were introduced by government as a form of legislation to intervene, to ensure that at least some of these stereotypes and challenges, red tapes are dealt with.
Right.
But much hasn't been done. Historically,
Historically.
society will always dictate what happens in school, because okay, se be teacher refela school, ebe ba ha o le hae, you are something else.
Yes.
You can only be a boss at work, and in the community you are something else. That is why we are always shocked when a police official kills the wife, because but you are also a husband who's armed at home. So I think there is a social engineering that needs to be done. It should transcend the conversations that we are having maybe as government, to conversations that we should have when we are in religious spaces, when we are in entertainment spaces, when you write scripts and produce films that we consume when we are at home. There has been, I think, a trend of late where Seven Delan.
Seven
Seven
Delan.
Seven Delan.
We latile hole level.
Yes. There was a scene, and I know this because I read about it, where a white Afrikaner male hit the partner,
Yes.
and the Afrikaner community challenged the script writers and the show to say, why do you portray this on TV when our communities consume this? To them, it's not normalized, but you can watch Generations, you can watch Isidingo, you can watch whatever. We know it has been normalized.
Yes.
So this conversation should also be taken to those that are in the arts who informs the thinking of society. Because in the workplace, you can only do so much legislatively, policy, and introduce all of those things. But when you go back home, I'm still a husband.
Come in. What is-
Yeah, I saw I saw that about Seven Delan. But how shaba moja love, Mushampama.
Jo.
You know, it's totally different. I think when you're talking about that whole what happens ko mosebetsing, I've learned something when I was reading this other book, that as a woman or as people, we need to work on two things. What are your values?
Yes.
What are your boundaries? Ko ha re bua ka di boundaries, re bua ka ile ya hore o hella mo ska ba tshela molao. And batho ba ngata ba understand the boundaries. That's why re tellana. That's why I can easily say, "Oh, wena ge," because we don't understand boundaries.
Yes.
And hangata in workspaces, re khotse bashimane ba re khula ka matsogo, he wena tlo kwana ba o freya ka nkane. And it was fine. But later on, there are things called boundaries. Do not touch me.
Yes.
I'm not your girlfriend. Don't touch me. No, ya na ibile go say, I'm sure you bonus on social media. In my workspace, it's different, because there's a thin line between hotel la lo sebetsa. I have kissing scenes all the time. Ra sunana mo le ra tshwarana. Ha ba re cut. It's done. Don't touch me. I get ra actor ra bereka. But now re tlwaelana in a different way where hali sunana because of like ekta, someone would think it's okay to continue and touch you or speak to you in a certain way.
Yes.
And I think we need to, sometimes we must teach people how to treat you.
Yes.
Simple.
Always serious fela hore do not no a re dire metla ya hore ntho maragho a ka matona ke re ke maragho a ka
Eh,
wa tshwanetse re bue ka maragho a ka at work. Let's not open that because sometimes as women we flirt. I get to be like bomme like it's my flirting like ho theta ntse ntate and then tate aba respond
Yes.
akere
But who wena man?
how le mme o theta o flirta ntate aba responda ha responda it's done ha o tlo e rata because at work people flirt
Absolutely.
ba batho ba ile go naturally ba rata o flirt ba rata attention ya banna that's how
Kapa.
need
Kapa.
Ke nnete, It's true.
Yes.
Ke nnete.
And we,
Ke nnete.
and we must flip it and be
Yes.
able to also say, "Go na le bontate ba ba ratang
basadi ba ba
attention,
fletang,
ba ba ratang attention ya bomme."
bomme.
Correct.
So they will also batshile mola o. So
Correct.
itla ka mo, itla ka mo.
Yes.
So how flatter o tseba hantle gore wa mo batla ha ka o batla le jole. Ska tla motho a ntse, "Oh, you know, the other day and I was thinking that Kira, ha respond like Kira. So le wena self do not do that to me so that we can ha re sebetse ka di boundaries ho gwa le batho ba itseng gore ho na le bontate ba le ba serious man ba ile go lona o le monna ha o mo le mosadi ha o tse o mo qale kae vice versa ho le bomme ba ile go ko mosebetsing mme le ha wa ka mole o motle very attractive but wa itse gore ha o papalle ho mme o and there are people ba ile gore easily you can just say hey pasi mo shape marago and ke tlo ho monate and then when it flips ya o reporta officing o ntshwere marago. So let's also respect boundaries.
Beautiful.
And not jump those boundaries because once those boundaries are jumped, it's a wrap.
Just to add on there, that's
Be-
very funny.
Before you say that, Teddy, I want us to, and Fifi knows this is the part where I bring her in. I know that our audience would want to engage, and I want us to do that quickly so that we are then able to wrap up this conversation. So I'm going to, Fifi, I'm already noting there's a hand. Fifi, and then we must agree. Are we opening it, taking 3 questions and then responding to them, or do we want to do a back and forth?
I think 3 questions would be fair.
That's fine. I'm happy with that. Teddy, let's have that last.
No, I
comment
wanted to
and then
say,
Yeah.
when you say you said, you guys are busy talking. Guys, I'm here to represent the Alphabet Gang. Hore, hona le bomme ba fletang le bontate, bontate ba fletang le bomme. I work in a huge environment where bontate ba fletang le bontate.
Yes.
There is this very, very thin line between us being homeboys, as bafethu by two,
Yes.
and not knowing if I'm crossing a line. Because of our similar mannerisms.
Yes.
And you know when a woman is flirting, she is batting her eyelashes and she's doing this. And if a guy is flirting, it's different when 2 guys are looking at each other. You don't know what is going on. Like, are they or aren't they? What is this?
That is very
So
true.
I work in an environment where everybody is very open.
Yes.
And we do, when we go for our sensitization, and we do provide that for organizations as well. So feel free to contact me, where we teach people how to handle LGBTQIA plus members in their organizations. How do you refer to me? I have problems where I can't go to the bathroom that I want to go to. Do I go to the male bathrooms? Do I go to the female bathrooms? It's a problem.
Like they
But
would
boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. You teach people how to treat you. I don't look like this every day, trust. Other days, the hair hangs all the way to my ankles. And I have to stand next to a man at a urinal at the mall and go, Dumelang. You understand? So it's about inclusivity.
Yeah.
And my boundaries are my boundaries. And if I don't teach people how to treat me in the workplace, how to refer to me in a public setting and a workplace, I find it very violating and abusive. Motho ha mpitsa madi, Asankiti. Why? Is it because I am? How would you feel if somebody of another race came to you and said, "What's up, my nigga?" Would that be okay? You see, you teach people how to refer to you. You teach people how to treat you, like we have been saying. And it's violating to cross that boundary. It falls under GBV.
Right. Fifi, we have questions?
Ere ke leboha ke
There's
tsebe na
another
ke
one at the
question
back
kapa ke concern
Yeah, ma'am.
haholo when comes to bomme bana ba nang le bosinyana ba nang le bana
Ehe.
ho na le this etsahalang ya hore in that relationship ho na le mphonyana le seanyana le ba teng
Right.
and ha le sia lena le ba teng re se re lahlane.
Okay.
Now, ha re se re lahlane abuti Asive o sa nyetse Kagiso
Ehe.
o nsile le mphonyana.
Correct.
Now ho so ho tshamekiwa system kore bo ausinyana ba bapala le system,
Ehe.
justice system,
Yes.
baya for maintenance,
Right.
which is right.
Yes.
Ha ke lwane le yona.
Fine.
But maintenance ona ba se ba o bapadisa le protection order
Aha.
di tsamaya mmogo.
Okay.
Ke batla maintenance but ke kenyetsa Asive protection order.
Okay.
Ha tlameha ho bona mphonyana.
Why would
Okay.
you do that?
Now re re ho etsahaleng ka maikutlo a Asive a ntshang maintenance
Aha.
a sa dumellwa ho bona mphonyana ya hae although o nyetse somebody else. So the killings tse ding go ya ka nna ke fila hore di causewa ke situation seo
Aha.
because ha re kena le Asive Kakubong hona ntho tse tharo tse re tlamehile re di lebelle: HIV, STI
Le
le
mphonyana.
So ke kene ka dikobong le Asive ke tseba hore e nngwe ya tsena tse tharo e ka nna ya ba teng.
Ehe.
But ha mphonyana a se a le teng, Asive o na le tokelo bo ausinyana a ba lo ruta hore o na le lona le lahlane ntho le kopanyang
Ke mphonyana.
mo dumelle a tsebe ntate wa hae. Ke ya
Absolutely.
di-slave queen tsa Ausmapaseng. Ngwanena haholo bana ba banana o e le gore nna tlabe ke hanne Asive a mo bone o tlo go kenella ntate ditšhaba a mo dumela because ha ba le a father figure o mo dumela because manta o ile a mo tima monyetla wa hore a bonde le ntatae.
Aha.
So le re kopa le yona hore bo ausinyana kapa le bo mme bana ba lahlilweng ba tshwanang le nna a re dumeleng bo ntata bana ba bone bana ba bona.
Right, Leboama. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
I,
saw a
there's,
gentleman on the
while Fifi is walking the mic to the two others, just before he speaks, I think one of the other critical things, and Pasi, I know you wanted to come in, one of the other critical things that we need to look at as a community, especially talking about the father figure matter, is how your family plays a fundamental role in terms of being present. And I'm speaking about fathers within your family. My father reads the Bible with my daughter when she's at home as part of what they do together. And she knows that she has a present grandfather. And I think it's a very fundamental, because you are not raising the child alone. You could be a single mother and doing a fantastic job in terms of raising this young person, because the support you receive from your family changes the life of this young person. And we should never shy away from speaking about the incredible work that is done in communities by single mothers. But we should also speak about the uncles, the grandfathers, the brothers who take responsibility. Ha ngwana hola cake e rekiwa ke malome, because malome wa tseba the role that they play in this child's life. Fifi, let's take that question.
Oh, dumelang le kae?
Re tsogile kgosi le kae?
Maloka. Ka lebitso ke Zondani, ke hla botshabelo man. Ha se hangata like re creang platform tsa ho tshwana kala le tsenana, mo especially how to bua ka ntho ya gender based. Se ke leletswe ka makgetlo a mangata hore tension e bang teng between rona batho ba bomme le bana in between. Most of the time motho ya hlokometsang haholo e ba ngwana. So ki bua tjenana ke le line le ntho mme ma bishop a hlalosang. Ki ntate ya nang le moradi wa 15 years. So ki bile mkhotsi wa ngwana ona like from the young age, from the day ana hlaya. But then mohlang hona le tsela ya like nna le mme re qabane and then re separate ways. So ke hona ha mme a qala lwana dintwa tsa hae ka ngwana. So ki bua tjenana ngwana ka o Joburg, o isitswe Joburg without my knowledge. So ila creator enga e bohloko ka re honna. But for a factor like ke hodisitswe ka tsela e itseng ya hore ska ba phamisetsa motho a mmeletso, then try to control it, like the emotions tsa hao ka tsela e itseng. So like I was taught or like every time ha ke face any situation then ke bue ka sona, then engage some people ba ba trust them ba hlalosetsa hore na ho etsalang bophelong ba hao, so that le bona ba khone like ho kenya certain things like ho etsetsa like o retract like from whatever that you are planning or like o end up o seremakile motho. So maobane like ke phone like this other lady o dula strateng sa bo ausi, then ore ha ke sa ho bona strateng sena like where's your daughter. So ka mo hlalosetsa rena like what really transpired between nna le mme. So ke ne ke mo hlalosetsa like hatred ke na le yona towards mme wa ngwana. So ntse ke bua ke like should a hlae mona nna ka mo chaisa le ka koloi, and then ebe ho fedile fela jwalo so that I can be able or like ke khutlelane le ngwana. So dintho tse di create ke certain gender ho lwana the battles tse re sa di tsebeng le bona like ba lwana ka bana. Ke a leboha.
I said 3. Age mama.
Agema.
Ditolaka ke Nkgono Tutu
Nkgono Tutu.
le motaka 72
Yes.
ne ka di rata
Yes,
Haholo.
Nkgono.
ke le mametse kaofela jwale ka ke tsofetse tjena ha ntse le bua dintho tse etsahalang tsa tlhekefetso ena empa re lebala hore tlhekefetso yona e qadile fela hang fela ha re hloka lerato mahareng a rona. Ha ke ntse ke hola ke ne ke tseba hore haebaneng ha mme seketekete o ntate wa teng o hlokaetse moo re dulang teng o ne o tsebe hore batho ba teng tshwantse ba lo ja hore bana ba teng ba hole hantle. Lerato leo ke lona le yentseng tlhekefetso ena e ngata ena ke lona re a le hloka ebile re le hloka le dikerekeng
Ma.
hobane re le hloka ka hare. Nka etsa dipapiso tse ngata. Papiso ya pele, ha o kopana le motho strateng o kgona mo dumedisa kapa o kgona mo feta fela ke yona hape. Ha ke re e re Bible ena le botho bona ha o bona motho e mong o tshwantse o bone wena re a etsa na ke yona eo e qadileng testing ena ha ntse re tla re siasiana ka dilemo re qadile rona bomme ke bua ka nna rona bomme re kala re e re ha nka qabana le wena ke be ke qala ka tlung ke bua ka wena baneng bana ba ka bana o nahana hore ha ke bua ka wena hobane ke qabane le wena bana ba ka ba tlo reng wena
Aha.
Ake?
Aha.
ke hobane lerato le le siyo
Yes.
ntho tshwantse re bue ka yona ke legato lena gore na re le gotlisa jwang ho rona
Aha.
and then ha re ka qala ra bua hoo ke hona re tla qalang hore jwale re qala ho fedisa tlhekefetso ena ke tlohele tse ding ke tle mona ho lona batho ba organisitseng ntho ena programe ena e bua ka bana hobane nna se ke bodile ha ke hlekefetse ake programe ena e le etsang
Yeah, Mom.
le etsa mona
Yes.
ntho e bitswang toropo ene e bitswang toropo
Yeah, Mom.
empa tlhekefetso ena
Equal.
e mang lekweisheneng lena le le baleyang le nahana hore na e tla fokotseha hobane ha e baneng re batla ho fokotsa tlhekefetso ena re tshwanetse re e kwana ntho ya bobedi tlhekefetso ena re tshwanetse re e kale ha ke re sito ho e etsa mahaeng a rona
Eh.
re tshwanetse re ye dikolong e seng tsena tse toropong
Okay.
tsena tsa mang buang sesotho le Sexhosa le eng le eng le
Eh.
re ho tsona
Eh.
re etse di-programs tse tlo etsang ho fokotsa tlhekefetso ena hobane ke teng mo e letseng teng a yalala toropong
Eh.
e letse lekweisheneng wane
Okay.
jwale nna ntho e ke tla e kopang ha ke tla dula kore le tlohele o tla re dulisa mona le re bolela ka tlhekefetso
Yeah, Mom.
empa le sena di-program tsa tlhekefetso ena kwana mo di leng teng
Okay.
hobane mono ke dinyaupe ka mefuta ya tsona ke di-crystale
Eh.
ke di-rape
Eh.
ke dintho tsena kao fela
Eh.
mona ha diyo toropong mona kore ha ka
Eya,
di teng ka dinyaneane mane mo re dulang ka bongata e seng mona le tlileng ka bongwe toropong le dulang ka bongata kwana ko teng mo di leng teng
Eh.
so ke kopa hore hona jwale ho tloha hona jwa teng ha re tswa mona re
Ha re
qeta
tswa.
probleme ena ya lona
Yep.
le qale heno ho bua diofising tsa lona le bue ka hore na le reacha jwang
What?
mona tlhekefetso e leng teng e leng ngata teng
Good.
ke
Really,
teng
Mom.
ke tla re letsa ntho entle mare hona jwale le batlile
Dumelang.
Dumelang.
Le kae?
Re teng, le kae?
Teng. Ka lebitso, I'm Roxanne Williams. I'm from Asut organization who's dealing with young people, gender-based violent issues, substance and drugs abuse. So the reason why I ask you, Dumelang le kae, ne? I was so interested in what the panel had to say on GBV, on how does it affect at home. And I had a conversation with a young man the other week, and I asked him a question, how are you? And he says, okay. And I went in depth with the question. I say, how are you?
How are you?
How are you? How are we as youth? If you can ask us that question. I think even when you go for, I'm just making an example, when you go for an interview, on your CV you'd state most your qualities, what you're good in. Imagine if we had to walk around the street with a picture of all our problems on our forehead. Do you think people will see us the same way as they see us personally? So I think we have to go back to the question, and it goes back to the community, it goes back to Bomme, it goes back to our grandfathers, our ancestors, on this issue that we have. You know, people deal with a lot of issues, and it's not a community, it's an individual thing. Gender-based violence or GBV or how you stated IPF, it's an individual thing. You talked about boundaries. When we start to teach our kids, and I always say that because I'm also a young parent, and I told my mom that I will always raise my child in a manner where she sees things in a different way. This thing of gender roles, where we expect men to do things, that's where the violence and abuse comes in, because we're giving them expectations. The expectation that a man has to provide. And if he can't provide, he's a coward.
If he can't do a thing, he's not
He's
man
this,
enough.
yes.
He doesn't have a backbone. As bomme, we are expected to bear we are expected to give children. We are expected to be the caregivers. And if you can't do that, you're not woman enough. That's the same community and society that brings us down. So hence I'm saying it goes back to how are you as a person? Kaofela re dutse ka mathata a hintsi. So if we start looking at each other in a different way, I think we will then fight this demon, this battle that we're facing. Because like I said again, it's an introspection thing. Gender-based violence is not something, at least saying, my suit is also not that good. It's not something that came maubani.
Yes.
Our grandfathers hit and beat our grandmothers. But back then it wasn't gender-based violence.
Yes.
In a lerato. Hey, mama, because in that utwa countries, unali stress, inking, tanzeki duty. Wait. So gender-based violence is really not something that came from yesterday's
Yes.
communication or whatever. Kiso sasahale.
Yes.
And it's that even in church we've got a problem. Baruti kibomang, kibontate. And with money and power, it plays a big role. So it's a broader thing that we are facing, not just in the community. It goes back to culture. It goes back to tradition. It goes back to your workplace. So my question is, how are you as an individual? That's the only demon that you will be able to fight. Thank you.
Thank you. We seem to be receiving more comments than
Then
questions.
questions.
But you guys are going to tell me how you are.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Ke kopa ho kgutlela ho ntho mama ntsa e bua. Mama ke hotse locationeng under abuse. Ka next door ho abusiwa mme, ka tlung ho abusiwa mme, ka mane ho abusiwa ntate, etc. Ka ya toropong. Ke kopa re ska re fela re ye abuse man. Because the abuse that I see living in town is far worse. Ke majalwa, o tshwantse o apare yang, ntate o kgamang. Nna, as a personal decision, I don't go out because somebody's father approached me. That's abuse, mama. Dilo tse re di bonang, ko re dulang, ka toropong, I think they are very, very scary. You don't expect to see such woodlands. How many children in this community, Woodlands is a community, in this community are not on drugs and willing and able to work for themselves? Mama, I'm one of very few children in that community. I say I want my own, and I could easily have somebody's father's own. So ke kopa oskare tlhekefetso allegation in fail, because the atrocities that we see
In town.
that in town, that Pasi can say that she's seeing in Joburg, banyana ba katelwa ka molomong, mama. So let us not classify it as a township thing. Let us not classify it as a toropo thing. Let us not classify it as an orphan thing. Let us not classify it as a ngwana ga mang mang. It is GBV, and that is all.
Oh, dumelang kaofela he.
Akhe, mama.
Nna ke mme Francina. Ke tswa platformong ya Sawit,
Yes.
South African Women in Dialogue. Tsamaya le mme Pinky Marek. Ha re bua ka ntho e ya gender-based violence. O Sawit ra dialogue. Ihle Sawit ra bua. Everybody else in the house wa bua. Hobane re hlokometse hore re phela. Re ikadile ka 2003. Ha ne re ikala University of Pretoria. Founder ya rona ke Mandela. Netse le first lady ka nako eo. A etse e nngwe ya dintho. A hlokometse hore we live in sick society. Mara gender-based violence e pharaletse ene gale e le teng. Nna ha ke bua ke hlola ke qala ka bomme Matsale. bomme Matsale ba tla itlhoela ngwana a fihla le ngwetsi ya hae a utlwa sa mo batle ha ke tsebe hobaneng mare ke ntho e teng se bile re normalize-itse sometimes ha Matsale a le rekge ngwetsi le yona e fihla e fa motse dinko ha motho a etsa dintho ka mokgwa di etsa a della e kadile mohe so ha a nyetswe Matsale a sa mo batle ha balwana le monna eno wa hae a mo tlisitseng ka tlung ka moo Matsale obviously wa itholela kere because o a tsamaya o tlatla le mong ha ke re ha ratile so e tloa mo so ha tsa retla bothata ba ka ba matsatsing ana nna ke le mme ya mogolo ke bana ba rona ba banana ke ratile ha le bua ka thin line wa tseba rona ha re ne ntse re hola bashimane ba rona jwale tjena it's just that ha le bue ene le teng ka mona banana ba matsatsing ana ha bana bashimane ha ba sukuli ha ba ferewi banana ba hona jena bashimane ba hona jena ba sa fereya itse ha kore ha hona ntho ye rona re hotse re na le thin line kore ha o botse motho di phone ke tseo bashimane ba ka bua nnete banana bana ba botsa o hokae banana ba hona jwale jena they are so available wa tseba ke hlola ke tshwa ke re wa tsamaya molong o kopana le motho o brela o tsamaya ka koloi e ntle o motle o tshwere founu e teng o fa founu ga ke re kana ga ya dineng o tla ho bona that day o mo fa location ke bua dintho tsa mannete nete o mo fa location e tlo nlata ka 7 le a dineng o kala o kopana le motho in the morning di platform tsa rona di a hlaha hore ha e sa le ngwana na itseng a nyamela apere jena ko hana ho hopolang go tseba ngwanyana o itse kopane le motho brela mare ka banna mo bona a le jwang so ha re banana ba hona jwale jena ha ke le blame mare mohlomong ke lifestyle ya hona jwale jena mare banna ke di hunters re hotse le jwang if you are available ha ba o hloke mare if you have a busy schedule you know yourself le ha moshimane o bisa hore wa tseba nna ka nako itseng ke tshwantse ke lo etsetsa batswadi ba ka dina ke tshwantse ke etse jena ke tshwantse ke etse kore o be busy ba tlo dula ba o batla ene elo a available mo di flateng wa bona ene ntho se etsahala hona jwale ja ke re rona batswadi a re sa involve if they feel hore ba lo dula le kore boyfriend ha e remove le nna flateng ba move banana ba move kore ha hona next kore mo South Africa who worse because le bana ba etsuwa in this country batswadi they are not involved wa bona that is why most sawit ila ga re qala ntwena ga re mare why re sia our young girls mo sawit ka dilenteng ba tseba e sa le re tsamaya le bona re at least ba mpe ba re etsise Sawit ke platform e hlomphehang hona ho haisana ke brand re tlo celebrate 20 years hona jwale tjena re bua dintho tsa mannete wa tseba nnete ya hlaba mara ha ke tsebe he di guys le teng ka mo why mara le sa ipuelele because nnete ye salang hona jwale tjena ha le fere e sa le di sale di le teng ha o kopile cell phone fela ho le
into the DMs.
Okay, o rege wa tseba rona nna jwalo ka chairperson ke le moetapele wa Sawit mo Free State platform ye ya rona ha tseretsa gender based violence ka ga ho le ka tshwantse re partner le di tronko because the perpetrators jwale se re bua go ba yentseng straight go re ntse ga re assume hore motho o abuse because ola asina father figure asina empa re natifisa fela ntwe go re empa re na ha ona ntwe jwang wa bana ntwa go so le slay queen o di week di tuko o beya 3000 ntwe mara ha lona le sina mokuku it's wrong at all cost so rona re la ga partner le tronko ya Groot Flame re batla ho utlwa from the horse's mouth abana papa ntho o ibuanya go wena o hanetse ka ngwana o utlwa ngwana a sa le kwa o tshwanetse o nahana re tshwanetse re nahane gore ntho ntse e nahana ka hlong ke file so lona le bu ha re se re partnerile le Tronco ka Father's Day ya bone ya last year ba bitswa ha re etsa di-dialogue bana ba di entseng ho na le a hlotsweng 28 years ko Tronco ke gender-based violence because e ne le serial rapist. Why? Because ngwanya o la nyala yena hantle ha sa nyetse mosadi wa hae a ba le ngwana sa nyala ngwana nana le ngwana ha ngwana qeta o hlaha ntate o mong kwa la fihla re ke tlo lata ngwana because khale ko jwetsa o bolelle motho ena hore a se ngwana hae ngwanyana le yena ke ha bolela hore no ne ku cheatile ha manete the rightful father ke this one ha le ka inahanela gona ke la ka hlanya jwang nna in my head ke ha ke nana hore basadi kaofela ba cheat. I was the only stupid man in the whole world. Wabona ka qala ke ikukela ho everybody. Wabona ha o hana o etsa ngwa bola o ntsa a le ka mola ka tlong hobane mona ha re bua ka gender based violence ha re bua ntho tsa mannete hle wabona so le lona ha le bana ba banyanyana ba banana be ke leng wa re tika bona ba South Africa mona wa inyadiswa ho etsuwa bana
No, she's not, but I want her.
Wabona ha o hlaela ka ntela bashimane ba ke bana le ownership because ha o le available motho wa o botsa kopana le wena molong a ga mara kana go bala le nna tonight flateng ya ka o re batswadi ba hao ba re o tla ba sota o fihla wa bona so ha o so sa khutli mo ebe o kopane le serial killer re to reng wa bona so this thing is very important ha holo ha e entsuwe ke batho ba batjha ga utlwana batho ba modimo lona a ke le eletsane mare le tsebe re tsofetse re le tje we are very worried about this young generation ya hona jwale because jwale ha re batla hore se re di sala ka morao ntho ke gender activist ha ntho e etsa re sala ka morao ha e felle fe o ngwane ba o lahletse kwale ho etsa jwang ha o fumana hore me wa teng lena ona sa tsebe batswadi bana ba sa tsebe ba kae wa bona ntho e etsaetseng ko Eastern Cape ha bana ba banyanyana ba lokela go thabeleng batswadi kaofela bana ba sa tsebe na bana ba bona ba o kae ke khutla hona motho
Beautiful.
Ke dumedisa batho bohle ke lebohela monyetla onana wa hore ke bue ntho ke batlang ho e bua ka lebitso ke Nthabiseng Kgatebe ke mme a hodisang a teenage son and I wish the panel could have stretched this a little bit kutlo ho bua ka substance abuse which is alcohol to be precise also Lorato you said something that's very profound hore ntate wa hao o la validate by allowing you to always take the front seat when the mother's not around. It might seem as something small, but it has a huge impact. My daughter would say she's feeling sad, she doesn't feel like socializing or playing and all that. And she has to take the time to find out what could be the reason. Now, not young precise, because now I'm over the age of, well, what you can call youth. But bana ka tsela e nngwe e re sa utlwisiseng rona re le batswadi re bua mantswe a bohloko go tlwa go bua ka the power of words mare in the workplace. I want us to speak about the power of words baneng ba rona jwalo ka batswadi bana re bua mantswe a utlwisang bohloko ha re qeta ha re khutli re tlo kopa tshwarelo. And now ha re qeta ho etsa jwalo ngwana wa isolate o bona ka re motswadi ha morate ho tlo etsalang o tlo ya ka ntle o tlo tsuba di drugs o tlo tsuba nyaope o tlo etsa ntho tsena kaofela ha qeta o tlo khutlela o wena tlo bolaya. So we are not breaking the cycle. Re bua ka abuse, yes, but when are we breaking the cycle for these young people to stop doing what they're doing? Hobane the effect of the drugs on the society is quite huge. Irrespective of the allegation, but we need to address the issue of the drugs. And we need to address the issue of parenthood. The essentiality of parenting.
Fifi, how many more questions do we have? Just two.
Dumelang hape. Ka lebitso ke Kelvin Musunyani ke tswa Botshabelo mona fela. I have a question and also a comment.
What?
The comment is in fact look at ka questions. how do we as a society deal with the after effects of GBV? Tabaka putswene khulutsa kore GBV ke wana no matsatsing a jwale e se ba generational, because if ufumana hore mme wa hlekefetswa kapa ntate wa hlekefetswa ka tlung, but ha a tswe in that relationship wa dula ba re o dulela for bana ba hae. And bana bana, the more ntse ba etsahala ho bona, it becomes normal. And also as a society ka bo rona hape, we have normalized gender-based violence to an extent ya hore motho ha hlekefetswa strateng re mo sheba fela re bone phoso ho ha motho nyeng. And then also potso e nngwe hape ke ya hore na re thusa batho be leng hore ba ka hare ho gender-based violence relationship ka tsela e jwang, because some of them ha o re wa kena dipakeng o tlo thusa, o end up e le wena motho a seng a hlaha a le wrong, kapa o end up e le ba wena motho a qetelletseng a seremakeya ntweng ya bona. Thank you.
Dumelang, ka lebitso ke Tebo Tshwaela ho hlaha Botshabelo. Ke leboela hobane ke utlwile ho bua hona le mme a hlayang ofising ya MEC. Potso ya ka e lebileng ho mme wa MEC o kapa a hlayang ofising ya MEC. Potso ya ka ke hore na premier. Oh, okay, on top. Oh, you are on top. Like Primora, he's on top. Okay, taba ke na mme wa ka ke hore na, are we aware for the beginning of GBV is a systematical abuse? Ntwena e qala from the system. Ha re thola re sheba, our system is biased. Ha re di calendareng tsa rona, it's almost Women's Month, Women's Day, women this, women this, women this. No. Don't take it like that, ne? They think, we as young men, we go through a lot. Haji against LGBTQ, but the awareness yabona is eba file le Pride Month. Official rona batho ba bontate ba khale ba abuser. Ha re so fui kgwedi ya bontate ya hore yena ana ke kgwedi ya bontate ho tlo sebetsuwa ka di issues tsa bontate tse loreng ba they are facing. I understand that too. So from the office of the Premier of the Free State, re ikopela di program tseno tsa tse buang le bontate specifically. Obane ho sona le this trend ya indoor must. That trend ke yone ke bona hore entse promote ba lo ga jupa promote gender based violence. Because indoor must inale di ntho tse lo gonya di favor. Ha ke sina koloi impa ke na le support because of akina koloi ho to indoor must have a car. Monna ke ve I'm not indoor musale jwalo. So please are trying to balance so that re kgone go bona diphoso tsa rona hantle on a balanced scale, because ha ke le fatshe o lodi mo re sa balance ha ke kgone go bona ka dumatlo rona phoso yo ka mara re le leveleng ye one, we can see hore bontate they are going through a lot than rona bomme because of everything. It's almost as that F M yona ba edibetse M standing male, F for female. Mara ke thabetse ntho hore ha o sa bua gender-based violence against. Against you is inclusive to women and children. Meaning, you want to include we, and I'm happy for that.
Wow.
Thank you so much. I think, thank you, Fifi. Thank you so much. I think we've had a very enriching conversation. Ke lebogela le gore re khona go bua rotlhe Khonu, thank you. Ke tlo go bolella chairperson gore o rile relegation re ska re ikganna mo mo toropong akere. When you are facilitating, you can either sit or stand. I've chosen to stand, and I'm doing it deliberately because my panel has extended a little bit, and I want us to welcome the chair of the NYDA. How le motjha, you have to know what the NYDA is. La ebile go teng ke a gana. And re na le difounu rotlhe, ha o se sure we Google it tlar as we speak. But Asanda joins us, Chair. Welcome. Are you well?
I'm well, thank you. And how are you?
Welcome to the cold Free State.
It's freezing. Hence the cold.
All of the jazz coming out.
Yeah.
Yes, but welcome. It's good to have you. We've had a very fruitful conversation, I believe. I think one of the things that I am appreciating with the audience that we have is that it's not just young people. We are getting fruitful conversations from both bomme, bontate, young people, which is building us. But fundamentally, I also think we have an added responsibility to continue these conversations. Something that Lebo said, and I'm raising it as I introduce you so that you can make your remarks before we officially close the program. One of the things that Lebo said, and I think it's something that we need to look at both from a young people's perspective, from a business perspective, but also from a societal perspective, is we've had men who have never had an outlet in terms of coping, dealing mechanisms. Teddy said we are coping and not dealing with issues. And Lebo said, other than soccer and alcohol, speaking from a black community's perspective, there's absolutely nothing that men particularly have. Women, we can go sit at a spa, do our nails while we talk. We can go to church. We can, those become our outlets for talking, for expressing ourselves, for engaging, but as we continued the conversation, we tied it and said, young women from dire situations do not have those outlets. It's easy for me to say it because the level of exposure is a bit better than a woman who is somewhere else. And we need to see how we bridge the gap in order for us to not only be relevant, but be completely present to the nation that we are building moving forward. So as we continue, as the NYDA grows and strengthens itself, we also then need to look at what do we then do to bridge the gap? Because it's not a yesterday's problem. It's not just a today problem, but if we want to deal with it moving forward, how do we then bridge that gap? With that said, let me not take your words. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair of the NYDA, Ms. Asanda Lutao.
Dumelang. Molweni. I will attempt Isusutu here and there. I do hope that I'm audible. Or do I require soft steward voice? Am I audible?
Yes,
okay.
You are.
No, thank you very much, Program Director, Facilitator of the session. And I think we must also just extend our appreciation to the organizers of this event, precisely because dialogues of this nature are so important. But what's also important, and it's also underscores my messaging that, during my term, I want to relay to young people, is that when we have such platforms, that we ensure that we leave no young person behind, right? Now, when we speak about youth, we say that young people are homogeneous, or we're not a homogeneous group, rather. So what does that mean? Is that within the youth bracket, which is anyone between the ages of 18 and 35 years, that we equally have an appreciation that we have youth that are residing in urban areas. We have youth that are residing in rural or peri-urban. We equally have young people that are from your alphabet gang community. You know, we've got youth that are living with disabilities. So how do we then re-engineer the work that we do as an agency so that it precisely meets those target groups, and that the work that we are doing ensures that in reality and in practical terms that we indeed leave no young person behind. Now, what the facilitator spoke about now around the idea of having particularly black men that don't have outlets, you know, young people that are from the LGBTQIA plus communities, or community rather, that equally don't have an outlet. This discussion, or this dialogue rather, should also serve as a starting point for us to say, all right, when we are speaking about matters of GBV, gender-based violence and femicide, who are we speaking to? Are we speaking to, and I'm running away from this term victims, you know, but I guess in the current lexicon, you know, you are a victim if you've been at the helm of gender-based violence and femicide. But what's important for us is that we also don't end up speaking to ourselves, and that discussions of this nature ensure that we equally speak to those that the messaging that we want to be relayed gets to. Because, I mean, if we just look at this room right now, and if we're having a true discussion and want an impact out of it, then, you know, how many of us here can say, okay, walking out of here, we are going back to our communities and we are communicating the messaging of today to the perpetrators of GBV and femicide, right? And I guess it also speaks to the notion that the gentleman spoke about around, you know, doing away with a indoda must culture, indoda must mentality. You know, it starts in these dialogues. It starts in these platforms, and you know, with anything, anything and everything starts with a discussion. It starts with an ideation. It starts with a dialogue, and out of that, then we begin the next phase of translating the dialogue and the inputs into programs that will ultimately seek to respond to what has been identified in these dialogues as challenges. So really, what then becomes important, and linking it back to government and our role. And I guess for those who don't know, the NYDA is the National Youth Development Agency. Now, we are an agency that is located in the presidency, in the Department of Women, Youth, and Persons with Disabilities. And really, if we had to look at the role of particularly government of the day, I think it's important for us to have an appreciation that the government of the day really does have an appreciation and recognizes the historic oppression of Africans in general, but blacks in particular. Now, this understanding also recognizes that the South African society, and really like many other societies, is patriarchal and is really anchored on the historic marginalization of women and the perception that women are inferior to men. So while all Africans were really subjected to conquest, colonial rule, and dispossession, the way in which women and men experienced this particular oppression differed. And ultimately, the response of women to that particular oppression resulted in them shaping their means to respond in a particular way. Now, there was a discussion that made reference to the systematic abuse and that there is a seemingly skewed approach that government has that favors women more than men. But I think whilst we can partially agree to that, we also need to be cognizant of the fact that the government of the day was and is cognizant of the fact that whilst, you know, men were also oppressed, women were oppressed on the basis of class, we were oppressed on the basis of gender, as well as on the basis of race. Now, when we speak about this triple oppression that Omama Betu encountered, equally then, in resolving that particular triple oppression, we need to be cognizant of the fact that whilst, yes, there are initiatives driven at empowering women, we are not in essence ensuring that such initiatives leave men behind. But in order for us to get to a society that we aspire to, we need to recognize and rectify the past injustices. Ultimately, then we can get to a point where we can say, okay, we have equalized the playing fields, and then we can start re-engineering those particular programs where there will be that 50-50 that must be carried through. But really, linking this, and I think in recent times, we would have experienced the COVID-19 pandemic. And whilst we had an appreciation that there was this particular pandemic, we need to also be alive to the reality that women faced what was coined the twin pandemic. So whilst we were battling with this health crisis, we were equally facing a crisis in our homes, a crisis in our schools, in our communities, and that is that of gender-based violence and femicide. I mean, how many of us wake up on social media, and if it's not a hashtag RIP, hashtag, I know in another in another movement that we are from, there's even radical feminists that are saying these perpetrators must be shamboked, it must get to that level of extreme, because currently they are saying that the current solutions are not responsive, because if they were, then we would not be seeing and would not be living through this pandemic of gender-based violence and femicide. So what these discussions, and I really just want to touch on some of the salient points that were spoken about. So there was a reference that was made to Sevendalan, right? But I equally want to take it a step further. So some of us, in as much as I'd like to say I grew up during the generation of your Yizo, ne? The reality is that I was not allowed to watch Yizo.
Yes.
I know that there were outcries back then around the vulgar scenes on some of those episodes, but equally, there's also a saying, okay, so let's put your Yizo aside. I think it's also important for us to also look at some of these, your series, your movies, your Sarafinas, for instance, So whilst we are cognizant of the past, I think we also have an appreciation, especially as the youth of today, to get to a point where we begin to narrate our own stories. Because, yes, we understand the generation of 1976 and the role that they played in transforming the society, and we, as the youth of today, are benefiting from the struggles back then. But how tired are we of watching SABC1 and Sarafina? Every year, I mean, for as long as I can remember, it's been June. I can almost bet my last cent. Friday, SABC will broadcast Sarafina.
Yes.
Now, I'm linking this because, there's a saying that goes, if the lion doesn't tell his story, the hunter will.
Yes.
Now, it equally speaks to what role do we as young people, especially young people in the creative spaces, what role do we play in narrating our own struggles? Some of us were part of your Fees Must Fall movement. I mean, how many of us can actually say that we're part of the narration of that, either in a book, in a documentary, in movies, and not just that, but there are many current and topical issues and challenges that we, the youth of today, are facing that are not profiled on the relevant platforms. So the responsibility is equally onus on, the youth that are in that particular creative spaces to narrate our stories so that we don't get to a point where the lion tells his story, that we as young people take ownership of our own stories and we then reflect and narrate the stories that will reflect the society that we aspire to get to. Now, moving past that, now I'm just trying, I made many notes while some of the speakers were making the inputs, but I'm really just trying to summarize, and it also goes back to some of the, I guess, the essence of what can be characterized as the current gender-based violence and femicide, is that we need to also have an appreciation that as the youth of today, we carry the generational trauma of our forebears. You know, we carry that generational trauma of omama betu, omakhulu betu, you know, that were abused by otata betu. You know, when they say that, I think it's Karl Marx who characterizes this idea of oppression, and he said that, you know, you have man is oppressed by a system, and what man does is that he then, because he does not have the means to exert his power on that system, he will find the weaker link, that being a woman, and he will exert his power in the form of abuse. So then all of this really goes back to this systematic how we characterize a society too, and how we need to break down those systematic barriers. And really one of the roles of the NYDA precisely seeks to respond to those systemic barriers that limit the success of a young person, that limit the participation of a young person in the mainstream economy. Now, linked to that then I guess would be why I was asked to be here today. Now, as we know, you know, obviously, June month is Youth Month, and we'll be commemorating, you know, what the youth of 1976 would have done. But as the NYDA, the National Youth Development Agency, we also commemorate Youth Month, and particularly June 16 this year, with a theme that says we want to do away with how things were done in the past. Now, I want to do away with your rallies, and we go on stadium and we sing revolutionary songs and kuculwe, kujive, iphele lapho, ne? But what then becomes something that a young person walks away with those particular events? They get nothing. They get lunch, they get a t-shirt, and they get passed back to their communities. So what we wanted to do this year is to ensuring that we give real tangible opportunities to young people. And how we'll be commemorating June 16 this year is that we'll be commemorating over a 2-day event where we'll be providing opportunities to young people in the form of your expos. We've got over 4,000 exhibitors, anything from, you know, young people that are in business, young people that are wanting to get work opportunities, young people that are wanting to know or prepare themselves for the 2024 academic year, and you know, anything that speaks to youth development, this is what we'll be doing in the form of this expo. And really it speaks to, like I said, us wanting to do things differently, one, this year, but two, also having an appreciation that, you know, one of the I guess the symptoms of GBV is that women are not economically empowered. You know, that's why you've got this blessy tendency or culture that currently exists. So what we want to do is actively say that out of these expos, young people, particularly young women, must be empowered in the form of real, tangible opportunities that they can walk away from. If a young person comes to our expo, they should be able to say, I was able to be assisted with drafting a CV. I was able to be assisted with registering my company. I was able to be linked with the necessary markets, so that my current business can either grow or start it up, you know. So that's really the thinking around this particular youth expo, and want to encourage young people, you know, to come on board and take up the opportunities, because also. In closing, yes. You know, in closing,
it's okay.
Yeah, no, I was telling someone there that, you know, how much time am I given? Because I can speak the entire day, but I also understand that we've been here for the most part of the morning, so I would not take up too much of everyone's time. But in closing, really, mine is just to encourage every young person to take part of these opportunities that exist. You know, when we do say that no young person must be left behind, there's only so much we can do. You know, we can speak about the beautiful programs that we have, but if young people are not accessing them, then it becomes futile. We rely on yourselves, and we also want to see the good stories that will come out of this year's Youth Month, so that next year we're able to say, yeah, when we tried something differently, these were the results, and these were the positive results that yielded from our active and our deliberate attempts to ensure that we incorporate young people in their own development and in their own sustainability. So yeah, Galoma Azwi, thank you once again, Program Director, and thank you all, and I look forward to seeing you on Friday as well as on Saturday. Oh yeah, the
Yes,
details.
where?
Yeah. No, the details of the expo will be a stadium, obviously starting on Friday, June 16, and it will carry on Saturday as well, June 17th. Yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can I know that speaking of the program for Friday and Saturday, you know, the province, just last month, the Premier, together with Mersita, joined hands to scrap out historical debt of students who could not receive their certification from universities. And that has happened, and we, you know, as I think it's a fundamental thing, because there are students who would not be able to move forward without their paperwork and with all of the debt that has happened. So we want to thank the Department of the Premier, the provincial government, DISTEA, for playing this fundamental role. I also know that, I want us to do our closing remarks, Pasi, but I also know that as part of what the province is doing for this Youth Month is that there is an artisan program within the province. If you want to become an artisan, or you are interested to get work and to be trained, you can hop onto that bus that goes to, say, Dr. Molemela. We no longer say Saramabotu, Dr. Molemela, on Friday and Saturday, so that you are able to be assisted with that. The Gauteng, I know Premier Lessufi is running the Nancy Spani campaign. So we do have provincial governments that are actively trying to ensure that young people, you know, are empowered, and we thank the NYDA for changing the landscape of young people and paving a better way forward for us to live a better life, and for young women to have better, greater opportunities. Thank you so much. Basi, I'd like to wrap up. My job is to speak English for a day or two. I could beat you at your record. We should try and see who's better at it. Yeah. We've had a fruitful conversation. Let's wrap it up. There are young women in here who are starting their lives, who have really not started their lives, actually. Let's talk to them about fundamental things that they should pay attention to as a young woman. You know, we didn't, you know, mama o na o mana. And you did not know what that meant. You know, you've got young women here. Let's talk to them as we wrap up.
Just to wrap up, I think, first of all, it was a beautiful day, a beautiful morning. It's good. I think one thing that we forget is that we do need each other as people, and it's amazing that we are here, sitting here and having these discussions. A bit older or younger, one of the most important things is to love and give love and receive love. Rejection is so also the most important thing is, I know it sounds boring, ribua all the time, loving yourself is important.
Yes.
Dial yourself.
Yes.
If you don't dial yourself, who's gonna dial you? How's my airtime? Isendele call back. Love yourself. Because we're always expecting. I was reading this thing, we rata ho itshepisa dintho. Oh, from now on I'm gonna go to gym, from now on I'm gonna and then you break those promises. But we expect promises from batho ba bontate. When you break your own promises to yourself, ha re ithateng, mme o buile ka hore no ana re offera ko banneng re ha re tlhompeng, ha re ithateng. Also, ha ke ya ko batho ba bontate, pentse ke bookiwa haholo ho lo bua dikolong. And it's so sad when they exclude boys. Ba re ke lo bua le banana, and then basimane ha hona motho o buang le bona. So I'll take it upon myself, ho ha ke invite lo sekolong ho ke lo bua le banana, I'll find a label that I know in the industry. Nka apere Bloemfontein, ha ke bua le banana, wena bua le bashimane.
Yes.
Just to inspire them. I think that's also my responsibility hore man, how we exclude you, ke ya ko banyane re bua ka bo di-pets, hygiene, loving yourself. Those boys what do hey sister. I cannot talk to boys because I not hore ha ke rate bashimane, but I can't relate. I can ha hona ntho tse leng hore ka di bua, tse leng hore ke di understand a lot the way you would do it. And thirdly, I'm sure le bone a story about a boy who killed himself because a young girl falsely accused him of rape ko sekolong. Sometimes bana ba tshameka too much, but dilute the importance of GBV. Ko dikolong mo ile go ganong go tshamekiwa ka yona. It's a serious matter e leng hore le bana le rona batswadi ba ba holo ba thakatsa lona mama. Ha ngwana tla ho wena a re someone touched me and I feel uncomfortable. I try to understand where did they touch you? So sometimes we just brush it off.
Yes.
And man, not hamika hela. Hara ba meleng bana ba rona ba honest. Bana ba rona they are aware. Ba ba nyane ba bohlale. And the last thing, I'm from here. It makes me sad ha ke khutlela hae ke kopana le batho ke kenene mona ka classeng ko sekolong. Ke ba bona the way ba leng ka teng. Nkusa bohloko. And not because of I'm saying that I didn't have a better opportunity. But I think the important thing is, what do you do while you are waiting for your dream to come true? What do you do? The waiting game is very tricky. So while you are waiting, are you going to drink and throw yourself at men? I get a waiting, maybe you are trying for that dream. We all have that fire. The reason why the fire in me.
Yes.
When that fire is still burning, but there's nothing happening. In the meantime. Or in the meantime. No. How are you meant to do it? How to get a hale? Itokomele. Ithate. Ithe mo speed no ipelo ga man today yana ke montle.
Yes.
Go tlhapa go bine go tshwanetse o nne le Christian Dior we spray. Just metsi fela feta mmeleng fela o be motle because while you're waiting, depression and anxiety is a real thing. Bana no na ba suffer o tla motho oh no, I don't want to see because I'm depressed. What is depression? Makgwa ba tla ba retsa chemical imbalance. Whether you have problems or not, some people have depression.
Yes.
But sometimes we associate depression with
problems. Yes.
Anxiety. What are you anxious about? And I think because of lack of knowledge,
yes,
I've always knew that I had anxiety, but next time we do anxiety.
Yes.
Because sometimes how we made the result,
yes.
But sometimes it's like lack of knowledge and not understanding. Our generation was the last one here. We were a bit tough. But 2000 But also let's try to understand. And I don't know and there's timing ka everything. Including in these conversations because we're going to compare ourselves with other people,
yes,
not knowing that your time is coming. And I feel that.
Yes. Thank you, Mapaseka. Lebo?
Yes.
I'd like you to talk to your counterparts.
Sure.
We spoke about this language in business that dilutes the importance of GBV. Your parting shot to men about their importance bona as buntate, bona as maoti, in bettering the situation. Whether ke ko gae, whether it's at work, whether it's in society, let's talk about that.
Ke a leboha mme Lerato, once again for this opportunity. Ho bontate kaofela le bo abuti kaofela. Being a man is a choice. Being a male, it's what you are born. You come into this world as a male, but you choose to be a man. And manhood is one of the privileges that God gave us. We should take it upon ourselves as young men today to embrace healthy and positive masculinity so that we model it to young boys to see that being a man is not equivalent to being an abuser, an irritation, or a problem to society. That being a man is there to provide direction, to provide protection, to give vision and clarity to society. That's number one. But number two, to encourage and challenge ourselves to speak up if that will make things better. From Tuesday until Friday, we have invited Minister of Police, Ntatebe Kitela, together with the Police Commissioner, to come down to Free State and invited delegation from different provinces to come here. Over 500 men will be here having a conversation amongst themselves. It's only 40 women who will be joining us only for the first day of opening. Then the rest of 3 days, it's man-to-man conversation. We invited older men, we invited younger men to begin to have this conversation amongst us. It cannot be normal that when the commissioner and the minister of police release stats, crime stats to the country, it is always men and young men who are perpetrators of these crimes and violence that we are talking about. It has to come to a point where amongst ourselves, we come and have these discussions. How do we attend to these social issues that we are faced with? Lastly, there's a saying that when the power of love overcomes the love of power, then society will become better. Hamata ale rato, aka hlola le rato la matla, re ka ba le setjhaba se betere. It is about time that from those who are from religious society, religious sector, those who are in the cultural and traditional leadership, those who are in the academia and institutions of higher learning, whichever world you find yourself, whether it's business or media, we come together and we begin to frame the value system of society anchored on nothing else but love. Because whether I agree with you, Teddy, or I disagree with your choices or sexuality, if I love you and I see you as a human being, it will be difficult or impossible for me to abuse you. So we have to get to that world. We have to get to that agreement where love necessitates all the decisions that we make, from government to business to society. Love that boy, love that girl, because you don't know tomorrow he might be a Thabo Beste that will dictate the conversation, and only to look back and discover this boy was actually neglected. Home Affairs pick up years later. A birth certificate, did not have ID. Whereas maybe if there was someone who reached out, we might not be discussing that particular trouble that we are having.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Teddy?
Hi.
Let's close it. Alphabet it's in another how?
Yes. Well, it's
a very diverse community.
Yes.
there's always a sensitivity around speaking the truth with the LGBTQIA plus community. And sometimes we say it's because we don't want to sound offensive. However, there are always intricacies that need to be discussed in order for us to understand each other. And if we have to move forward together, not as one community, not as men, as women, and as LGBTQI, but as one community, we need to agree on fundamental things. And I think we need, as you close, we need you to speak to the fundamental things that we have to agree to in order for us to move together as one community.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone for having me. This has been very interesting, nerve-wracking, but very fruitful for my alphabet gang. Like you say, they're mine. I think it's understanding the thin line between opinion and fact of the LGBT community. Opinion and fact are the thin line that causes the assumptions that people have about the LGBTQ community. It's always what you heard in church, what you heard, or what you know culturally that defined you, that made you define me or the next person differently. Now, as I was saying that we are also celebrating Pride Month.
Yes.
We're celebrating Pride Month along with Youth Month. I am sure everyone has seen in the media, people are busy suing Virgin Active, they're boycotting Woolworths for having a stand that has LGBTQ paraphernalia and products and encouraging people to become allies. And I don't think people understand why we have to celebrate Pride Month, which is, I could, as an adult, pose the question, why are we celebrating Youth Month? As an adult. As a man, I'm asking, why do we celebrate Women's Month or Women's Day and not Men's Month, without understanding my privilege, looking into the people that are celebrating what they are celebrating. And I wrote something earlier, I've been looking for it, my manners, why I've been scrolling. I wrote something and it goes to everyone, especially my LGBTQIA counterparts, because I also think they miss why we celebrate or we commemorate Pride as an entire month or as a day in itself. I wrote that, remember, Pride isn't just about celebrating the LGBTQ community. It's about showing up and mobilizing to protect ourselves from the hate that's being spread through our households, friendship circles, local communities, and across the country. It's about taking action and taking a stand. It's about demanding to end a hateful-fueled violence and the policies that embolden it. It's about recommitting ourselves to honoring those that have been stolen from us from such violent actions. So instead of being worried about why there isn't a straight pride, be glad that you don't need one. Thank you. Those are my last words.
What a fruitful conversation. We've been here since this morning. We are into the afternoon, I believe. Lunch is ready. Yeah. But I am happy. I'm happy that we have been able to meet as a community. I'm happy that we've been able to have this conversation. It's not just a youth conversation. It's an everyday, everyone conversation. But I think it's important that I say, in closing, that you could never get it right if you do not begin with yourself. We expect a lot from other people. We forget to expect as much from ourselves. We build other people. We forget to build ourselves. We are today's children, but tomorrow's future. We are a president tomorrow. We are a friend, we are a mother, we are everything that we want somebody else to be. And yet we are able to be all of that ourselves. So today we are wrapping up. We are thanking the audience that we've had today. Thank you so much for the engagements. You have been a lovely audience. Thank you to my panelists. Chair, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it. And let me thank the provincial government of the Free State, together with the Department of Arts and Culture. We are now ready. I hope so, Chair. We're ready for Friday? We're ready. Yes. We are ready for Friday. Friday is the 16th of June. A very critical day in the calendar of all South Africans as we commemorate June 16, a day that shaped the lives of young South Africans. And we are hoping that as a young South African, you will continue to roar, not just for yourself, but for others. Ke morwadi a kgomolemo, ke lorato ka leina, ke morolongo o setlhare, ke morakile wa ga lo batile mmatshwana, ke lo lebogile.
Thank you.
Oh, Bagolo.
They just cut it.
Gate ke lebetse gore there's a closing performance. Ke kopa maitshwarelo, Fifi, my boss is calling me to order. That I forgot that there's a closing performance.
I think we can
Fifi, do you need us to move from the set, or do you want us to sit before? We can move.
Yes.
There we go. As they get lunch ready for us, we will be having a live performance. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks, Lebo. Thank you so much. Thank you. Go. You want us to do
and you say
I just said she must not leave us yet. The media would like to
one more time. Thank you so much, Kaleboga. Thank you very much.